Hello everyone and welcome back to our Fireteam series. In the first chapter we're covering how to create our characters. In the last episode we got our characters aiming up and down, left and right. In this episode we're going to carry on and make them start shooting at each other, using the server to handle the shooting calls made by the clients. So let's get started. So as I mentioned before in previous episodes, we're going to replace our current guns we've got here for a new weapon system. And that weapon system relies on interfaces and using a child actor class to send over commands to the weapon. So let's go ahead and create a new weapons folder for our game. And part of in here is going to be our combat interface. So we're going to right click here and go to blueprints and choose blueprint interface. And this is going to be called our combat interface. And an interface is a collection of functions that you can assign to actors that don't have to be related. And this allows us to do what we call virtual calls, so it doesn't have to have an exact reference to that exact class or exact instance in this case. So we open it up here and we just insert the name of our function. And this is going to be called primary fire. And we'll hit compile and be done there for now. Next, we're going to create our weapon base class. So right click, do class, and we choose actor. And this can be called our weapon base. And this will be the parent class of all our weapons. So if we have just handguns and rifles, they will be children of this class. Even weapons like swords, for example, will also be children of this class, although with lots of things overridden and customized there. Nonetheless, this is where you want to start. So in our weapon base class here, we need to assign that interface. We can go to class settings, and over here we've got our interface section. Choose add and search for our combat interface. When you add an interface, you'll see the interface functions get included over here on the left hand side. We can now assign these to various different functions, abilities. So in our event graph here, I'm just going to clear this out for now. And on primary fire, we're going to right click on this and implement this event. So when the player pulls the trigger, it's going to call this event on their gun. Now we need to replicate this across to other guns inside the game. So we need to make sure we've got a few things set up, such as some basic events and abilities, as well as our basic settings we have on our class defaults. So the first thing we'll do is go to our class defaults and tell our gun to be replicated. So tick the replicates button there. And that allows the game to replicate information about this thing to other versions of it. What we're next going to do is get a reference to the player character and call a remote procedure call to fire the weapon. So basically what we're doing is we're asking permission from the server to start firing the gun. Essentially that's what's going on. So let's go ahead and set that here. So we call primary fire, we're going to do on here, call custom event, and we do RPC underscore, and this would be start shooting. And this start shooting call is going to be on our gun here, going to be a replicated function. So here you have multicast, run server, and run an own client, and we'll be using these quite a lot throughout this development, obviously. So let's describe what each one does. Multicast means that every version of this object on the clients are going to be called in the same event. Now, this can only get called if the server requests that call. Okay, so you can't do multicast from a client; it has to be coming from the server. Run on server allows a client can tell a server version to run some function, but the client must own that actor, and you can own an actor by spawning it in based on that client. Then run on owning client is the opposite of that, where the server can tell the owning client that owns that actor to do something specific to their version of this weapon. So once we start shooting, when that happens, we want that to be run on server. Now when we tell the server we want to start shooting, we need to send over some information about where the player is aiming in order to send that across. So on inputs over here, we're going to click on new input, and we're going to set up the direction we want to aim. That'll be a vector. Also going to have the origin location of the shot itself. And we also want to know which controller is doing it. So with a server call, you actually have access to all the controllers in the game as the server. So this is totally good to send over to the server and say, hey, this is the one that's trying to shoot at us. Controller reference. They have these three things here. And each one of these is going to go through and be used to calculate whether or not we can fire bullets in that direction. So the actual firing of a bullet is a line trace. So let's do a line trace by channel. And the starting position for this is going to be our origin. So let's drag our origin to start. The end location is going to be our origin plus a vector. And it's going to be plus in the direction multiplied by the range of the weapon. So let's multiply this by a float, and that'll be the range. So just right click, promote variable to fire range, then drag that into the addition there. So we add an offset onto our starting position to give us our end location of this line trace. We'll plug that in, and then we'll plug all that in there. And that'll do a simple line trace out. Now you want this to affect everything. So if it shoots, if it can see through it, you want to be able to shoot through it. So we're going to change the trace channel here from visibility to camera. And that will do for now. In fact, we may actually turn on draw debug type so we can see this by ourselves for duration. Yeah. Whilst we're testing this out. Now, as we are doing this, we want to make sure we're not hitting ourselves. Because this thing isn't attached to us, we want to make sure we don't accidentally shoot the person who's actually shooting the gun. So to actors to ignore, we need to make an array for this. And for this, we need to get who is holding this gun. Now, we could do it here, but what I'm actually going to do is put it on a begin play event. That way, I've got a reference to the owner all the way through my code here. So let's do a begin play. And on here, you're going to right click, get parent actor. And this will trace out and find the actor that owns this child actor. Okay, so if this thing was created by a child actor component, it will find who owns that component. And on here, I'm just going to cast to our first person character. And drag that in. We're then going to store this as a reference so we've got access to it for all our various uses. And I want to make sure this gun here is set to be owned by this character. Just in case it doesn't, it's not a problem. We can just drag out and do set owner like so. And this won't be going to target, this will be going into new owner. Okay. So, that's it for now. We'll come back to there later on. And on here, on our make array, we're going to drag in that as first person character list there. Okay. So on the other side of this, on the out hit, we're going to have that promote to a variable. Leave it as out hit. And then I'm going to drag out our, from our hit here, a sequence. We're going to do various number of things. The first thing we're going to do is to fire the bullet out and deal damage to something that is going that way. So that has to be replicated to everyone. Everyone needs to see that bullet fling out of the gun. Okay. So let's go down here and create a custom event and call this one fire bullet. And this will be a multicast. And I tend to put an MC at the start of this so we know it's a multicast. It's fire bullet. And this requires a couple of things. We want to know the hit information. So we're going to get the result from that. So that'll be hit result. And we'll do hit result. And we also want to know the direction that we've been shooting at. This allows us to easily do particle effects, things like that, to show visually the bullet exiting the gun. So direction, and that'll be vector. Okay, so at the end of here, we're going to drag out our MC fire bullet. And we're going to hook up our hit result here. Out hit. And the direction of the shot that we're going to drag out from over here. I'm just going to add a little reroute node in. Keep it a bit tidier. And plug that into direction. Okay, that's going to go off and do fire bullet, which handles all the visual stuff. Next thing we want to do is actually apply damage. Now, applying damage can only happen on a server call, so damage won't actually happen on the MC fire bullet, but it will actually happen on our start shooting here. So when we do this, we're going to drag out this value and do a apply damage. And we'll choose apply point damage. And this is going to take on the damaged actor and various number of information here. For that, we use our hit result. I'm going to drag out my out hit, and we're going to drag that out and do break. Get various pieces of information. So we first of all only want to apply damage if we actually hit something. So on blocking hit, we can put that into a branch and put that into our then 1. The damaged actor is going to be coming from the hit actor over there. And we want to take the base damage here from the gun. So I'm going to right click, promote variable, and then base damage. The hit from direction comes from the trace start and trace end. Go from trace start and do get direction, and you'll see get direction. 1 and 2, just start and end, and that'll go into hit from direction. That way, the player will know if they got hit by another player, which direction they got shot from. For hit info, we need to drag out our out hit. Put that in there. That gets passed along to the character so they know what to do with it. And then we've got to sort out the event instigator and the damage causer. So the damage causer is the thing that is actually doing the damage. So this weapon in this case. So in here we're going to do self. Okay. We're then going to do the event instigator, and the instigator is the controller who shot this weapon. So over here we insert the controller as part of our start shooting. We're going to drag out from there and do a reroute node, and we're going to drag out again to our instigator. Just another reroute node there to make it a bit more tidy. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, we've got our applied point damage going in. Remember, this can only run on the server, so this function, only the server will actually do this. We then have to handle it on the server side later on. So on this fire bullet then, we're using a multicast. And as I said, this is the visual side of things, or audio side of things. This is where we sell the idea that a bullet's been shot out. So in here, we're going to do a simple montage play based on our first person character. Drag out this. And in here, we need to get hold of the particular mesh that we want to actually apply this montage to. So we're going to do it to our first person character arms. So we get mesh to P. Scroll down the bottom, you'll see get mesh to P. And from there, I can get the anim instance of this mesh. And after that, I can now go to montage, play. And we're also going to promote the montage to play to a variable too, so we can add it and change it per weapon. So each weapon can have a different animation if it needs to. Okay. And that'll do for now. Obviously at the end we'll put in sound effects and particle effects, but for now, that's what we want. Hit compile and go down to montage to play, and I'm going to set that to our first person fire montage. This is the one that comes with the first person template. That'll do us just fine. Okay, hit compile and save that, and that is that bit done. So we actually need to call this RPC start shooting, and that comes from the event primary fire. Now, event primary fire, we need to know also when we stop firing as well as start firing. So we need to make sure we've got a boolean on here to indicate that. Now, to edit this, you just double click on it, and it takes you to the interface. Click on the function you want to change, primary fire here, and go to inputs and add new input. And this one would be is firing. And so that if we let go of the button, we'll make that false. So back onto the weapon base, we should see is firing is now there, and we can put that into a branch. And then we can call, if it's true, start shooting. And this is going to take in some information about our character, where they're aiming, and what they're doing. So let's take out our direction from our character first of all. Now the direction from the character is going to come from where the player is currently aiming at. Now we can use our player controller to handle this. We just get player controller. And this will get the local player controller. Remember, this is only firing on the local because the local will be doing the input. So the local client will be the only one calling this thing. A get player controller will work just fine. We can do this, and then we can do a thing called deproject from screen to world. And here we can give a screen position and tell us which way we're actually looking based upon our camera view. And this is useful because typically we can be a bit more specific about where the crosshairs are when we are shooting. So in here, I'm going to do get viewport size. And I'm going to divide that by 2 to get the middle point. Divide by a float. Change that to 2. We're then going to offset this. Now this is because the default crosshair you see in the first person template is offset by 10 down. Or is it 10 up? I can't remember now. If it's 10 down. But whatever it is, we have to drag it out and do minus vector 2D. And in the Y, you're going to put in minus 10. And that's going to be your screen position that you want for this. And that's going to give us our world direction. Basically, which way is the camera looking from that point of view. Drag out from there, put that into direction. The origin is going to come from the gun's muzzle, where the gun's tip is. Now, the gun at the moment doesn't have any mesh on it, so let's add the mesh to our gun. Let's go to mesh. And we'll do FP gun. And I'm going to add a scene component to this. This scene component could be the muzzle. So I'm just going to rename this one muzzle. And I'm just going to roughly position it where I want it to go. And rotate it around as well. So it's going the correct direction. As X is forwards, so 90 degrees like so. You should see the red arrow going forwards. Compile, and there we go. And that's the origin. I'm going to be using the muzzle there. So let's do muzzle. Get world location, and then plug that into the. And last thing we need here is the controller, which we've already got here. We just drag that across like so. And then that was going to handle on the server. Server will call this thing, and away it goes. So that's for when we is firing. So we just need to call this primary fire thing. Let's go back to our player character. And we've got a fire function already set up in our inputs because this is the template one. So you'll see in there fire as an action input. Once we've done that, we're then going to drag out our FP gun, which is our child actor component. We need to get the actual actor class that was actually spawned in by this thing. So we just do get child actor. And then from there, we'll call primary fire. And that's going to try and attempt to fire this weapon. The plugin depressed, tick is firing. The one last thing we want to do is we're going to go back to our weapon base, and we'll make sure this reference to the first person character here is replicated across all clients to be the same reference. Replication, turn on replicate. And now if we were to playtest this, you can see in our server view, shoot the gun. Fine. And if I were to switch over to my client view, they can shoot the gun just fine. You can see the gun moving on the other side too. Now at the moment we can't see the third person gun. We haven't attached it to the third person. Let's go ahead and do that to finish things off. Let's go to our first person character here. Go to viewport. Go to our TP gun, and we're going to attach that to our grip point. Correct, and just change the offsets back to 0, 0, 0. So that's set up like that, but we only want to show one at a time. Now we can't change it on the weapon base because that's going to be using the same class, therefore we want to change it per thing. So on our first person character here, we need to set this up in our event graph. And for that I'm going to do a function. This is going to be to configure weapon appearance. And what we're doing is we're taking out the FP gun here and doing get child actor. And then from child actor we need to cast this to the weapon base. this is the FP gun. So this one we want the only owner to see this one. So get skeletal mesh. And then from there, set only owner see. And then for the other one, we can put that into a sequence. Make it a bit easier to see what's going on. There. And we want to do the same, but for the TP gun. TP comes out. Child actor. And we're just going to copy stuff. Back to there. Object into here. And skeleton mesh here, we're going to do set owner no see. True. We then need to call this function on our event graph. So let's go to our begin play and put in our configure weapon appearance. That. I push play now, and we should now only see our own gun in view, their own gun in there, and we can see that we can actually see two weapons in our client view. So what's happening here is the third person gun hasn't updated itself to meet our needs. Now this could be for a variety of reasons, but most importantly, the reason could probably be because of delays. Now when dealing with multiplayer games, there's always latency you have to deal with. Sometimes a function or item may get loaded up before anything else is loaded up that it needs to. So in this case, the weapon is setting up the ownership over here, but that ownership may not actually happen in time. So what we're going to do is on begin play is delay the configuration here. I put a little delay in there, and 0.2 may be alright. So let's try it with 0.2 and see if that makes it. I go to the client view, and there you go, much better. I can only see one gun now on both views. So the delay you'll see coming time and time again, because that's how we're going to have to deal with latency. And if you do find that that latency, delay isn't long enough because of the extreme latencies you're experiencing, then obviously tweak that number to your own liking. But there we have it. We've got two guns, one in first person view, one in third person view, aiming and shooting. Now as you can see on the other view, we can't see the other character animate. That's fine. We'll do that next time when we do the effects and sound effects and so forth. There we have it. We've now got shooting working in our game. Now at the moment our first person character is animating, but our third person isn't. But in the next episode we're going to cover that and then go through also how to do reloading for our characters as well. You can watch that next episode right now over on patreon.com/Ryan Laley. We can catch all my episodes early before everyone else from just $1 a month. As a thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members for their continued support. It really does mean everything. Thank you again so much. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you download Fireteam, and I'll see you all next time. Bye everyone.
I'm ready to play now. Put me in the game now. I came here to prove it. I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid now. Put me on the stage now. I'm ready to rage now. I feel like an animal stuck in a cage and I'm ready to break out. My time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop. This time, like the last time, you better get ready to race it.